Black Sabbath. There's hardly another band with their own fans' opinions being so divided. All Iron Maiden fans love The Number of the Beast, all Motorhead fans Ace of Spades, and all Priest fans Painkiller. But for every Sabbath fan who praises the Ozzy albums is another who prefers Dio. Some got into the band during the Tony Martin days, and the Ian Gillan album Born Again gets all kinds of reactions anyway. So here's my take, absolutely not representative for other Sabbath fans and strictly my personal taste. You'll find out that I like albums from all eras.
Titled Never Say Die, which is also the name track of the album, which hadn't been known Never Say Die. It's going to be released around August, I believe.
Never Say Die marked the 10th anniversary of the band as well as their all-time low. Dave Walker had briefly been in the band, then Ozzy came back at the 11th hour wanting to do this album. The previously written material had to be scrapped and there were only 2 days left to write new songs before the recordings were supposed to start. Both Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler later admitted in interviews that the result was really bad because it was rushed, and I won't argue with that. The band who used to blow your speakers with the sinister Sabbath Bloody Sabbath was hardly recognizable at this point. Even on such a train wreck of an album, you find nice details though. Listen to the funky bass line Geezer plays in Junior's Eyes, for example. But when they dive headfirst into jazz like on Breakout with its saxophone doodly-doo, they really screw it up.
We have a new album out right now called Cross Purposes. That's what this is all about. You know this one?
The tour for Cross Purposes remains one of my favorites. Live on stage, Tony Martin managed to blend Ozzy and Dio classics together with the best of his recent additions. You wouldn't want Ozzy to try and sing Heaven and Hell, neither is Paranoid a song which suits Dio. Only Tony Martin managed to deliver a perfect Sabbath show covering all eras equally. As far as the studio album Cross Purposes is concerned though, it was one of those albums that provided the opportunity to play 2 new songs, okay, and then the crowd would shout for the classics please. Seven Stars, an LP which wasn't intended to be a Black Sabbath album initially. Tony Iommi started it as a solo project. However, for the purposes of sales figures, it joined the Black Sabbath discography and became an album with more sensitivity than others, but lacking in heaviness instead.
How many of you people know we have a new album out right now? It's called Forbidden. We're going to play you a track from that now. This one's called Kiss of Death.
The last Tony Martin album has a couple of good songs like Can't Get Close Enough to You or Rusty Angels, but it was also an awkward attempt to modernize Sabbath for the 90s with The Illusion of Power. All in all, a mixed bag.
We're going to do a number off our new album, Technical Ecstasy now. The number entitled All Moving Parts Stand Still.
Technical Ecstasy was recorded under difficult circumstances when the band didn't know whether Ozzy would stay or leave. Keyboarder Gerald Woodruff said we had to drag him into the studio. Bill Ward even took over the vocals for It's Alright. It's an interesting album because it's pushing the envelope. My favorite tracks are Gypsy and Rock and Roll Doctor. Yet it's definitely no candidate for the top 10 Sabbath albums.
Do you have the Eternal Life album out here? You know that album, right?
Again, an album recorded at a time of crisis. Sabbath in the mid-80s had been a constant coming and going, so it's no surprise that this album was first recorded with Ray Gillan, but finished with his replacement Tony Martin, who had 8 days at the studio to re-record vocals without any creative input. Still, one all-time classic emerged from this record, The Shining.
We'd like to do the title track from the album. It's a song called Born Again. Thank you.
Definitely a weird album and difficult to place in a ranking because it walks the thin line between genius and madness. I like songs like Disturbing the Priest and Zero the Hero. Ian Gillan probably had a ball singing tunes like Trashed or Digital Bitch. I love playing it from time to time.
The new song of one of our forthcoming album, which is called 13, the song is called End of the Beginning.
When the new studio album with Ozzy finally appeared, it was a decent offering. Similar to Dehumanizer, getting a former singer back in the band meant that the musical style took a step back as well, to the roots of doom metal. I mean, if the best song on the album is entitled God is Dead, you know, it's no party time rock and roll here.
Alright, we're going to continue with one track off the new album here. We're going to go into the first track of the first side, okay? It's called Mundi.
With Tony Martin meanwhile fully established in the band, Sabbath set out to make a Viking-style album, a bit more melodic than its predecessor though. I love tracks like Mundi or the Sabbath Stones. On the other hand, there was the cheesy ballad Feels Good to Me, probably the worst attempt the band ever made to satisfy the commercial interests of MTV.
Here's a tune called Into the Void.
On my 50th birthday party, I had hired a Black Sabbath cover band to play live for my friends, and I remember Into the Void went particularly well. There's a video from that on my channel. The band was called Night Witches, by the way, but they split up since. Children of the Grave and Sweet Leaf from this album are even more popular, but with Orchid, Embryo and Solitude, there may be too many quiet moments. The third album was the most difficult for the band so far. During the first and second album, Black Sabbath had been a small underground band who just went and recorded their tunes in a few days. When they did Master of Reality, they had 2 gold records on the wall, the pressure of high expectations that comes with success, and more time at the studio than ever before for retakes or adding some effects, working with 24 tracks now instead of 8. The openly Christian messages of After Forever and Lord of This World show that they were also concerned about getting rid of the devil worshipper image. Thus the result was simply not as free and bold as Paranoid had been.
The album's called Dehumanizer.
Dehumanizer got seriously heavy with After All and I, not forgetting catchier tunes like TV Crimes or Master of Insanity either. Great package. Not just looking into the past where Mob Rules left off a decade earlier, Sabbath managed to aim at the future with Computer God. This might be the band's most underrated long player.
Alright, we're going to do a number now of our Volume 4 album.
After the first 3 albums had defined the doom metal genre, the 4th LP became a bit more mild, even psychedelic. It kind of opens the second chapter of the band's musical development, because songs like Tomorrow's Dream or Changes would fit better on Never Say Die than on the debut.
Well, it took us a long time, but we finally, after what seems like 100 years, did another album. That album was and still is called The Devil You Know. We should like to do a song for you from that album.
No matter what it says on the sleeve, this is a Black Sabbath album, not only because it features the complete lineup of Mob Rules and Dehumanizer. More importantly, music is here to prove, and it's crushingly heavy.
Put in use a mightiest weapon, the Doom Machine.
Bible Black and Atom and Evil are massive, while Eating the Cannibals provides some up-tempo in between. Nothing to complain.
Let's do a number now called Black Sabbath. Thank you.
Black Sabbath had the power and the magic and was just the beginning of that amazing career. If you have any doubts whether this album from 1970 is still relevant today, just listen to Black Sabbath's Vertigo, the whole album re-recorded 50 years later. It will blow you away.
See if we remember this one. Goes like this. If you listen to fools, the mob rules! Yeah!
Mob Rules features great tracks like The Sign of the Southern Cross, Falling Off the Edge of the World and the powerful title track, but also less kicking tunes like Country Girl, Slipping Away, Over and Over. It is still among my favorite Sabbath albums, but not quite at the top.
The album's called Sabotage, the new one. And the track we're going to do up and now, the number entitled Symptom of the Universe.
I've come across many bands who play strictly doom without looking to the left or right. Like all really important bands though, Sabbath are not strictly limited to one subgenre. Hole in the Sky or Symptom of the Universe demonstrate that they were also precursors for speed and power metal. If you're looking for the missing link, get Am I Evil by Diamond Head. Am I Going Insane feels a bit silly, but otherwise a great album.
Somebody say Paranoid.
This album has impressive numbers like War Pigs and Iron Man. The title track is overrated though. Paranoid is a 3-minute song that, a bit like Judas Priest's Breaking the Law, stayed in the setlist forever because it's fun to play with an audience. But Sabbath certainly wrote a wagon load of better songs than this simple tune. Producer Roger Bain recalled the band were actually hesitating to record it for the album. It was the last track to be added. They had intended to call the album War Pigs, that's why a warrior's on the cover, but they changed it to Paranoid because a catchy single would help the album's success. The real surprise of the album, however, was Planet Caravan, which demonstrated Sabbath could also do soft.
Alright, we're going to do a number of our Sabbath Bloody Sabbath album.
This was 70s Sabbath at their peak. Kicking off with the incredibly heavy title track, the album is a bit more open in songs like Spiral Architect without overdoing the experiments. The listening pleasure is enhanced when a track like Fluff gives you the opportunity to relax and breathe before more monsters jump at you like killing yourself to live.
This is from the Headless Cross, yeah.
Tony Iommi said in interviews, Headless Cross felt like the first real Sabbath album in many years. After the undecided course they were steering with Born Again, Seventh Star and Eternal Idol, they now had a clear vision of what they wanted to do, an album about the good old devil stuff, reminding themselves where the name Black Sabbath initially came from.
Let's try again, shall we?
It was as dark as the early stuff, but musically more harmonic and catchy. My only complaint is that with 7 songs plus 1 intro, it's too short. The songs from Black Moon to Kill in the Spirit World are haunting your imagination, and this is probably the most round Sabbath album where everything is in the right place. This impression is surely also caused by Cozy Powell joining the band, whose powerful drumming added a lot of energy.
We'd like to do for you from our newest LP, Heaven and Hell, the title track, the same thing. A song called Heaven and Hell.
I needn't tell you much about the magic songs of this album, from Neon Nights to Die Young, from Children of the Sea to Heaven and Hell. After the weird releases Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, Heaven and Hell was a much more accessible album that managed to win a new generation of fans for Sabbath. I started listening to Sabbath in the 80s, and the 2 albums which made me a fan were Heaven and Hell and Speak of the Devil, where Ozzy Osbourne played the greatest hits from his time on Sabbath. Mind you, the career of Sabbath could have gone something like this: split at the end of the 70s, occasional reunion shows with Ozzy in the 90s, forgotten in the 2000s. Instead, they enjoyed lasting popularity with 20 studio albums in various lineups. But the success of Heaven and Hell laid the foundation for that because it encouraged the lineup changes. Calling it the best Sabbath album is a difficult decision, but in case of doubt, it's also the most important one. Good night.